From New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental Tire from the AT&T 5G Virtual Studios. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss, Chuck D, Charlie Davies. Flex on him, Chuck. It's Thursday. There is nothing to talk about. Has been no midweek action. I did not attend a soccer game on Tuesday. It is a blank slate. For me, for you, for everyone around Major League Soccer. And we have three great games this weekend. 6 p.m. Eastern, Saturday, Fox, Minnesota, LA. Galaxy, new number 9, new number 99. I think that's the number that he's wearing. Atlanta, LAFC, Sunday on ESPN. New head coach, new DP. It's all good. Portland, Seattle, Sunday on FS1, 10 p.m. Eastern. Anything you guys would like to talk to me about before we start, before we dig in?
Charlie, you're a father. I am not, so I don't know this experience. What's it like when you build your entire life around something and then you hope your child also appreciates it, and then the child basically is like, I want to leave. This sucks. Is that heartbreaking?
For most, I would say yes. That would be definitely heartbreaking.
Okay, I just wanted to get into Weeby's mindset.
I'm not like most. That's the thing. And we're going to talk about Leagues Cup. You better believe we are. Did I have to leave early? Yes, because my child was bawling. It was very hot. He was very uncomfortable. He may not have liked the noise that came from the Leon fans making their feelings known after 6 goals. We saw all of them, though, but all is not lost for Leagues Cup. I'm still annoying about it. I still believe it's going to be huge, and it might still be huge this year because Seattle Sounders smacked Tigres. Shout out to NYCFC and that broadcast crew of Sebi Salazar and Hurt Gomez for getting through that one last night, but they didn't get through with a dub either. So we'll hit that as well. But so much to talk about before we get there. CCL Thursday night, tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern, Club America hosting Philadelphia Union. This is on FS1 Univision and TUDN. Estadio Azteca. This is the sort of place that the Union have dreamed of being. They are now there. Give me a quick prediction. We're not going to break this down fully because a lot of people who listen will do so on Friday, and it'll all be moot at that point, but maybe we'll look really, really good. Maybe we'll look like all-seeing MLS eyes. Charlie, your old club, the Union, do they get a dub? Do they get a draw? Do they get a result? Do they get blown out at Azteca? What happens?
1-1.
1-1.
And the reason why it's only 1 conceded is because you have Andre Blake. Yeah. I think Andre Blake is one of those players who keeps you in a game and makes those fantastic saves. If he stands on his head, which he's very well capable of doing, I think through direct play, whether it's the transition, counter press, Philly gets their goal. They concede 1. I think they're under an immense amount of pressure. They concede 1, but they leave Azteca with a point.
That would be a brilliant result. I think I was there for a 1-1. Montreal, then the impact. I think they got the first goal and then hung on, basically. And that's what you're saying here. I would love that. You see it, Dave?
No, I think it's going to be 2-1 America, but I think similar to Charlie. Like, I think this is a team that can be defensively stout. They can defend in numbers. Then they can be dangerous in transition, and they will be dangerous on set pieces as well. So I kind of see it playing out the same way as Charlie, except America gets a late one to put them ahead, but 2-1 coming home is fine. As long as they get an away goal and as long as they are within touching distance, it's a successful night for Philly.
All right, there's 2 scenarios I could take. One would be the America blowout. The other one would be the Union sneak a win, and because we need to have a little bit of everything, the Union are sneaking a win. 2-1, 2 away goals, baby. If I'm wrong,
I love the positivity.
If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But if I'm right, it's a beautiful thing. We'll see. It's going to be fun. CONCACAF Champions League semifinal, 10 p.m. Eastern tonight. If you're listening on Thursday, whenever this comes out, 5 p.m. Eastern, you got about 5 hours to get yourself ready for this one. Enjoy it. It's going to be a fun match. We'll talk about it next Monday, of course. Let's talk about the biggest news in Major League Soccer before we preview the entire weekend here. And it helps that Atlanta's hosting LAFC on Sunday on ESPN at 4 p.m. Eastern because it ties right in. The news this morning, Thursday morning, coming out via Atlanta United. Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic had previously reported that it was happening. Gonzalo Pineda, Sounders assistant coach, former Sounders midfielder, longtime Liga MX midfielder, is the new Atlanta United head coach. He will be in Atlanta for these next 2 games, but Atlanta United says that Rob Valentino, who's done such a great job in the interim role, will continue in that role for these next 2 MLS games, including that Sunday match against LAFC at Mercedes-Benz. We sort of mooted this one. It seemed like maybe they were going to go a different route because it's Atlanta, because that's where they had been for the last 2 hires. Paulo Fonseca was thrown around. It did not work out with him, and this is where they end up. There's been a lot of debate on Twitter about what exactly this is. Is this a domestic hire? Is this a foreign hire? I don't think any of that matters. It's not reflective of what this league is and what our soccer culture is in any way. This is an MLS experienced hire in my mind. And you can kind of tell that's where Atlanta felt like they needed to go. They needed somebody who understood the ropes, who wasn't going to come in and within, 11 or 12 games, basically have hacked everybody off so much that you had to fire him. Looking at you, Gabriel Heinze. So this is the hire. Is it a good hire? Is it the right hire, Charlie? Do you like Gonzalo Pineda to Atlanta United? His first head coaching job, by the way.
Of the candidates across Major League Soccer, I like this hire a lot. If you're not going international, if you're staying domestic, this is a great hire for Atlanta United. Someone who understands the league, who's had a ton of success with the Seattle Sounders, who was a player, a well-respected player at that. I think you bring in a coach who has a tremendous amount of knowledge in how in this formation that they're playing with, 3 in the back. Now it's, how do you manage this the rest of this year? Is it just getting into the playoffs? Is it, you know what, we're going to change a lot of different things. We're going to be moving players around, the players that I believe we want here in the future, because let's be honest, all these players he didn't bring into the club, whether it was Frank de Boer, whether it was Tata Martino, whether it was Carlos Bocanegra or Darren Eales. None of these players were his, but now they are his because he is the head coach. So what direction is he going in? Ezekiel Barco coming off a brace. Is this a player that you want to now cherish, or is this a player you're looking to offload and sell right away?
But you got to do the first to get the second, right?
Right. So I think it's going to be an interesting one, but Rob Valentino staying on the staff, I think that's key, because now you have a player or a coach who's been there, done that, has seen how the locker room works, and then getting Joseph Martinez fully fit and engaged and on your side. That's the number one key for him to win this locker room.
Feels like culture has been missing for them. And, we read Felipe's reporting and talked to him on this show about that, but it's just kind of felt a little empty since Tata left. And look, a lot of culture is built around winning. We know that. That's not a mystery. Like, if you win, things are better, people are happier, everything seems to go smoother. But Gonzalo Pineda has seen about the best, if not the best, and Sounders fans are probably yelling right now, but the best culture in MLS. I mean, the things that they've done, the rosters that they've built, the cohesion that they have even this year, and we'll talk about the Sounders in a second because this is a big blow for them. It's not just Gonzalo Pineda, it's Jimmy Traore who's taken off as well. So Schmetz just lost his top 2 assistants outside of Preki. That's his job, right? His job is to bring culture, and part of that culture is getting the best out of your best players. The Sounders have always done that. It's helping your younger players improve. In particular, recently, that's been a big push for the Sounders. They've been super successful. And it's finding a roster that is balanced and experienced and cohesive. Everybody has a role. They know their role. They fill the role, and it all works out. Whether on the Sounders side, it's Bruin or Rowe, or, go through on down the list, different center backs, Shane O'Neill that have been in, etc. Stephen Cleveland stepping up. Like, that's what Atlanta need, and that's what Gonzalo Pineda's job is to build, in my opinion. A team that plays for each other, a team that has winning first, and a team that plays up to their potential and sometimes beyond it. And that playing up the potential part, we haven't seen that part in a good long while. I know, Dave, that you've been on the Gonzalo Pineda head coaching train for a while. Train's in the station. Flip this here. This feels good for Atlanta United to get Gonzalo Pineda.
Yeah.
Is this the right job for Gonzalo Pineda to start out? It's a pretty hard job to jump into.
Yeah, but as an assistant, the jump to that first head coaching job is the hardest part, right? Because, as Charlie said, this is the right hire. I wasn't all over this for Atlanta because there's risk. You've never seen him play this role before. And this is probably the most prepared assistant coach we've ever seen elevate into a head coaching job, right? Like, with the level of autonomy Brian Schmetzer has given him, as well as the level of success he's had in Seattle, the type of player he was, which was that coach on the field type player, the experience he has in World Cups across this region, all of that, it's as close as you can get. And yet there's still that unknown because he's never actually done this role. But he needs that first opportunity. He got really far in the process with DC. After that happens, for Gonzalo Pineda, you are taking the first offer you get, and it happens to be one of the biggest clubs in the league with one of the biggest budgets and all that, which is awesome for him. So yes, it's the right move for him. It's the right move, I think, for Atlanta. As you said, building that culture. To me, the key to that culture in Seattle is one, expectations, two, not an obsession with the way you play, but understanding how to make your talent feel comfortable. And so when I look at Atlanta and I look at Seattle in the time Gonzalo Pineda has been there, both as a player and a coach, you look at groups where Obafemi Martins comes in. I couldn't tell you before it happened exactly how him and Clint Dempsey would fit together, but the trust was that talent will figure it out and that you'll put them in places where they can have that connection, that process. I think you look all the way down, even now, at teams where with their teams where it's, how does Yaimar fit alongside Arriaga? How does João Paulo fit in? Whatever it is, there's like initially an understanding that Seattle will be successful. There's confidence they'll be successful. And then from there, it goes to how do we put guys in the right positions to succeed? Atlanta hasn't done that. Frank de Boer did not do that. And then Gabriel Heinze was more interested in the way his team played and the way it looked from his personality than what made Jurgen Damm most comfortable, what made Miles Robinson most comfortable, how you got Sosa started in a new city, in a new country, Ibarra as well. So now you shift back with Gonzalo Pineda, I think, to an understanding of it doesn't have to look one way. Success is just in the results and how can you build from there. And Atlanta's in a place where that's okay. Under Tata, maybe they would have said style and results matter. I don't think that's a conversation that's happening around Atlanta anymore because of what the last 2 years have looked like. So now's probably the time for a guy like Pineda.
I mean, they had to leave that behind, right? Like that's been pretty clear. Like getting results is now number one. And I go back to that culture side of things. And I was looking through the list here at assistants because what you said sort of jumped out at me, Dave, about like, is he's the most prepared assistant? Probably the most prepared assistant to be elevated to a head coaching job among current MLS head coaches with Brian Schmetzer. Right? Like, so you have a history here of that within the Sounders organization, and now Gonzalo had to go outside of it to get his. But if you go through here, right now you have Javier Perez, an assistant elevated. He's the interim for the rest of the year. He started to have a little bit of traction. Wilfred Nancy, we've praised him all year long. That's the elevation that he made as well. Keep going through. Freddie Juarez, I mean, that's not the same because he was down at RSL, but Josh Wolf, certainly he would fit that bill as well. Marc Dos Santos would fit that bill. A little bit of a mixed result there for them. And then Brian Schmetzer is there too. So, yeah, look, we'll see if this works out for Gonzalo Pineda. But once the phone rings and Atlanta says, we want you, and all the things are in place, you say yes, right? And they got $40 million in attack. They just got a new DP up front. You know they're not shy about making moves, about spending money, about supporting head coaches. They've done that with their last two to a great degree, maybe to their own detriment at times because they had to move on from that coach. But, you know, Frank de Boer, and although he complained a little bit, I remember, he complained about some of the player interactions in and out. But money was spent. They got the players they wanted. Was now the right time, though? Like we talked about, should they just stick with Rob Valentino?
So can I just throw out as well, because you're going through the list of coaches, I don't think there's a coach who's – yes, I'm correct. Okay. There's one coach in the top 8 in the league who didn't play or come through this league, right? So Ronnie Deila is the only coach who came from overseas, quote unquote, that's been somewhat successful. Hernan Losada now is following that up. I'm correct in my memory? Okay.
Yeah, I think you have to go all the way to 10 because 9 is Gary Smith in Nashville, and he's obviously MS experience as well.
Yeah. Adrian Heath, you start to walk a line where it's like, well, he's been here for so long, whatever. But the point being, that clearly has been some level of success for clubs. So that makes a ton of sense on that side. In terms of timing, the fact that he is an MLS guy makes it okay. I think if you hired Apollo Fonseca to learn the league and to learn the experience and your players and start to build a culture is a lot to do right now in the middle of a season with COVID and everything else going on. So I think that I may feel differently if that was the signing, but Pineda's already halfway down that road, if not more. So I think it's okay to make that signing now, have him come in, be around this group this year, start to build a culture, start to build a relationship with the group of players, let him understand who he really wants back, because you've got a full roster, but you can finally start to get some flexibility in this offseason to make some moves, not a ton, because of the way this thing's been put together. So I don't think you're putting him in a situation where he's set up to fail. So I think it's okay with Gonzalo Pineda to make the move now.
Atlanta United, by the way, have 3 wins this year. That's not very many wins. I think we all know that. Cincinnati and Toronto are the only other teams in the Eastern Conference that have that few. Houston only has 3. Vancouver only have 3. They're 6 points back in the playoff race. They're 10th in the East right now, Charlie. 18 points, 1 point per game. Columbus is on 24, same games played, so it's equal there. You talked about the rest of the season. To me, this hire of Gonzalo Pineda now, and it should be, and Darren Eales said it, and so did Carlos Bocanegra, we're going to try to make this move, is just a reflection of the expectations and the roster. Like, it's reasonable to think that this team could go on a run and challenge for the playoffs. I don't know if it's as reasonable to think that they could go on the sort of run that would push them all the way into the playoffs, or comfortably so. What should be expected of Gonzalo Pineda and this Atlanta United team the rest of the way? What is reasonable to ask?
Well, I think the reason you make the move now, because you're already thinking about January and the offseason, that Rob Valentino, no matter what he was going to do, they were going to make a new hire. With that in mind, you pull the trigger now, so you give them that time, 6 months with the team, knowing that come January, they'll already know all the moves they want to move forward with, instead of bringing in a new coach at that time who hasn't seen anybody. And then you got to go through that process of, all right, let me see the guys out. Let me play some friendlies. You're giving him a run of 6 months with these players to figure out who are we going to keep, what are we going to do, what's the style. So come next year, we're going to hit the ground running. We know exactly how we're going to play. Everyone's used to Gonzalo Pineda, and you know exactly the players that you're going to either keep or sell or re-sign. So I think with that in mind, you go out there and you try to chase the playoffs. I think they're in too big of a hole. And I think when you look at the squads that are above them, Columbus, they've been poor. No doubt they've been poor, but they have the ability to turn it on, especially when you have a Lucas Delaran on your squad. DC United, they're a team that could drop, but it seems like Hernan Losada has got them bought in, and they're only getting better, not worse. Nashville, we know how they play. Super strong defensively. Now they've added much more to the attack. I've talked about that.
You smirked, and I didn't know where you were going there.
I talked about this countless times. They have made tremendous improvements in the attacking phase of the game. So I definitely give them the credit when credit's due. Philly's going to be a problem come the end of the season. Seeing Paxton Harrison already being able to start, getting into those pockets, really good on the ball. He's only 17. I think he's ahead of where Brennan was at his age. Really impressive. They have a good squad. New York City only getting better. I love what Thiago's brought to New York City.
But Charlie, New York City are third in the they're 10 points ahead. Yeah. Atlanta are not catching New York City. What is reasonable?
They're not catching. They're not.
What's the reasonable expectation? Is the expectation on him that he will lead at least a playoff, like a competition to get in the playoff spots? Like, what does he have to do?
I think reasonable is finishing in the 8th spot. If you can finish in the 8th spot, that's a successful season for Gonzalo Pineda with this Atlanta United team. And that's tough to say, because this is a team that's based on championships and entertainment, and just getting into the 8th spot's is a success, but that's where they are. Realistically, they're 2-3 at home. This is a club that does not lose at home. They blow teams out 4-0, 5-0 at home.
Used to be that club.
3. That used to be, right. But that's the expectation. So for this club, it's complete rebuild mode. That should be what all the fans are out there thinking. As bad as that is, you have Miles Robinson, which is obviously a gem. He is a gem. And you have Joseph Martinez, who is also one of the top strikers in the world. And then now you're trying to fill in the blanks. What do you do with Brad Guzan? Is he the keeper next year? Do you go out and get another solid keeper? The back line along Georgie Bello is another rising star. How do you what's his best position? Is it a left back? Is it a left wing back? So they have great Ezekiel Barco, another player. When he's on, is super dynamic.
But that's his job. That's where his job is to get Ezekiel Barco on. His job is to make sure Luis Araujo is a DP caliber $10 million player. His job is to make Marcelino Moreno comfortable and productive. His job is to have Joseph Martinez look at him and be like, that's my guy. That's the guy that's going to make me look like the old Joseph, which I feel I've been held back from. Where do you stand on the rest of the year, Dave?
I think a playoff push is the most you can expect and should. And Charlie talked about entertainment. Like, to me, that's entertaining because you're in a race and it means something and it matters. And it's your own championship, right? You're resetting the boundaries, which is from this point on, can we be one of the best teams in the league or whatever you need, which at 5 points behind the playoff line is kind of what they need to be, above average. And I think that's fine. And I think fans would understand that, especially after what they've watched and what they've gone through. What's interesting to me is actually after the season, because Atlanta's had such a strong connection in Argentina. And that has been where they've pulled their players. And Gonzalo Pineda has a background from Mexico. He was a Mexican international, was a Chivas legend. And then you look in Seattle and they've pulled players from everywhere, but Rui Diaz has been the most successful one. He is part of this model we have now seen. Zelarayan is a part of this. DC hoped Edson Flores would be a part of this, of in your prime Liga MX players being your top end players, being successful in this league. So I'm interested to see, does he shift the way their transfers are made? Does it shift the profile of player that they bring in? He probably won't have a DP spot to play with. We're hearing Almeida's already done as well, coming from Argentina. But the Argentine player in this league that MLS pulls is more of a gamble than a Liga MX player, because normally they are younger or they have played in a style that is more different than MLS. That wasn't English, but I'm just going to stick with it anyway.
You just throw PT Martinez out there for that.
For sure.
That comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. So this could be an interesting spot where his background and talents, and obviously he's brought in an assistant coach or head of scouting coming from Mexico as well. I think that could make this club more stable and be a boon for this club if they're willing to steer into that. We know Frank de Boer, quote unquote, says he did or didn't get his players. Obviously, Heinze got some of them.
He definitely got some of them.
He did. It was a weird time. And okay, fair. I mean, he didn't get his first 4 options at center back because they were all injured or couldn't be transferred. But he did get the players that he picked. So it'll be interesting to see what Pineda's options are.
but are you with me as far as if they finish 8th?
Yeah.
Just below the playoff line, that's a good
push
season for them. Yeah.
I think on points per game the rest of the way, a good target would be to be in a playoff position on that. That may or may not get you into the playoffs because you've already got a deficit that you're working away from. But that to me would be the goal. All right. How about Bob Bradley and LAFC? Because that's the opponent this weekend.
Oh boy.
It's been pretty rough for Atlanta until the last 2 games. And even honestly, well, let's just say the last game. They won in Columbus, and before that, it had been all the way back on May 15th since they won against Montreal. Bunch of draws and losses stacking up during that time, leaving them where they're at. LAFC are not in the position they'd like to be in. A lot of losses and draws stacking on them. We talked about unbeaten streaks on the last show, and Minnesota United, I promise you, we will give you your time on this show. But Los Angeles FC have not won in 5 games. Before that, it was a 3-game win streak. We get a lot of schadenfreude, I would say, about the power rankings because, boy, oh, boy, did we love LAFC, and boy, oh, boy, are they disappointing. What is going on with them? What's at stake for them this weekend?
Well, their back line is horrendous. So we can start there. And, yes.
Is it their back line that's horrendous, or is it their center back situation? Kim Min-won's been pretty good. Diego Palacios is solid. I like him.
Not as a defender, maybe going forward.
Okay, that part's probably
all
fair.
Right, so you lose Eddie Segura. That's a huge loss. And that's obviously gonna change the way you defend, the way you play, the way you can really get at teams, because he was that player who could read, anticipate, and stop counterattacks. The transition, major. Blackman is just not ready to be that player for LAFC, the guy who's going to, be the first one to win challenges, to step up in the aerial game, to dictate the play, to build out of the back. He's not ready for that role. He's, for me, still a player who you bring in at times as a role player, a role defender. Maybe you want to make a change to your starting center backs. He's not an outside back. And as a center back, he's a little too slow in reading the game. So with a 3-man back line, it was never going to work for LAFC because they don't have the players. And now they're even in a bigger hole because, you sign Ibeagha. That's a player who hasn't played all that much, doesn't have a ton of MLS experience. Yeah, he's played sparingly, but that's not a player that you can say, hey, we got our big anchor in the back to make a real strong run in the playoffs. Yes, you have Carlos Vela. And when he's fit and when he's healthy, he's the best player in Major League Soccer. But he hasn't looked like that this year. He hasn't looked motivated. He hasn't looked fit. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But for LAFC, what we're accustomed to seeing, like Atlanta United, entertaining, winning the ball, the possession in the midfield, always high pressure. We're not getting that anymore. That unbelievable midfield of Atuesta and Marc-Anthony Kaye and Latif Blessing, when they would just counter, win it back, and it was effortless, and they flowed. We're not seeing that. Atuesta does not look like the same player that we've seen over the past couple of seasons. So I'm and the goalkeeper, I mean, I saw Tomas Romero in Philadelphia Union when he was just coming on. I think that a lot needs to change. I mean, the goalkeeper position has always been shaky, but then when, like you brought up earlier, David Goss, when you lose Zimmerman and you trade away from him and you don't replace him with someone who's really capable to pick up the slack, if not be better, you're not doing the team any justice.
I did not make that point, by the way. I do not totally agree with that point. I think that the Walker Zimmerman trade for Jesus Maria as a swap of quality of player with the money they got for Walker Zimmerman makes sense.
Who made that point?
Anders.
Oh yeah, Anders did. Yeah, Anders made the point the other way, and I don't agree with it. I think they took too long to get Murillo, which may have tanked a playoff run for
Anders.
them.
Producing Anders.
Right. Yeah, give him his proper title.
So I think that may have been an issue, but then you put Murillo and Segura together, and they were one of the best center back pairings in the league. You didn't have Kim Moon-Wan healthy. I think injuries have been a huge part of this. You missed Vela for you missed Vela for all of last year. You missed Atuesta for a huge chunk. Then you come into this year, and now Eddie Segura tears his ACL, and I can't listen. Seattle's had injuries. They've missed Nico Ladero. They are still one of the two best teams in this league. So you can do better. But part for LAFC has been they built this incredible expansion team, and then to keep a lot of it together because of raises and increases, they've had to take deals for Marc-Anthony Kaye and for Walker Zimmerman to make it all work. And so the margin for error becomes less. You have less pieces, less depth that you can tap into when someone gets hurt. And that was kind of always going to be their reality because that's Major League Soccer's reality. I think part of this was they were going to flip Diego Rossi and Brian Rodriguez and originally Andre Horta. And that never happened. And that has now thrown a wrench into their ability to continue to build out their roster or maybe turn it over into the next piece. But it's always hard to bring players in and have them be successful. So like there was never a guarantee that Rodriguez was going to be good, or if they sold Rossi, whoever they brought in after was going to be good as well. That's the risk in what they built. And so I think you're seeing some of that come to light. I think a lot of it is injuries. I still think if Segura was healthy and Vela's back this year, no one wants to play them in the playoffs, but that's not going to be the reality of their team. And I don't know that they have center backs on their roster that you can trust. And so even if they're in form, even if they shift the way they play, and I might actually slightly disagree with Charlie, and I tend to think that if you don't have two center backs you trust, it's actually safer to play three center backs you don't, to give a little bit of cover for guys if it fits the rest of your talent. So I think there's still question marks there of how you move it all around, but I just don't think it's the same team that we expected. Now, I will say Arango in the first game looked like the fit they wanted, which is he's more natural center forward, but he's happy to swap out wide.
They don't have three center backs, though.
Understood. So I would rather play Farfan, Murillo, and Blackman than playing Murillo and Blackman, because it takes it takes responsibility off of Blackman's shoulders in reading space and covering more of the field. It takes responsibility off Murillo's shoulders in being the guy like Segura, as you mentioned, to always read the long balls on the press over the top or to always step forward. Like, you're allowed to make smaller mistakes. You have less responsibility and you can make more mistakes because you have more numbers already around you.
And you put your fullbacks in better positions as well. The other side of this is that Bob Bradley, during their run, when they were just uber dominant, and of course we were drooling all over ourselves every single week as Carlos Vela just lit the league on fire and laughed about it. Bob Bradley recently has not had sort of what you expect from Bob, which is just sort of like confidence and belief that just can't be pierced, right? Like his most recent press conferences have kind of been like, yeah, honestly, we're not competing at the level we need to compete to win games and get results, and I'm not exactly sure why. So there's something to figure out for LAFC. And going to Atlanta on a weekend when they have a new DP who we haven't even talked about, Luis Araujo, coming in from Lille. We think we did that already.
So last time.
Yeah, I think he's going to be available. I don't know. I'm not sure. I know the Galaxy's new young money guy will be. But we shall see on Sunday. But yeah, it's a big game for both teams. For Atlanta, for LAFC just to find something, some sort of traction. And for Atlanta, it's to find what they've been missing for a long time now. And that really is exciting their fans, thrilling their fans. They did on the road in Columbus. Can they do it again? We shall see. That one is on Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. It's the first national TV game of the day, but it's not the first national TV game of the weekend. Minnesota, LA, Saturday on Big Fox, FOX, all capital letters, 6 p.m. Eastern. Minnesota United fans were not happy with us. Last show, we were like, oh, dang, we're going to do it. We're going to talk. We did unbeaten streaks, and they have a super long one. We didn't talk about it. And then we said, okay, we'll do it on the power ranking show. Well, then they finished 11th. So we didn't talk about them on them. They feel slighted. We got to do it now. 1 loss in 13 games. We were all over their 4-game losing streak to start the season. Woe is them. What's going to happen? Do big changes need to be made? Do we make a big miscalculation on what they're going to be this year? Well, I think it turns out probably that was just a blip, Dave, because what they are is a pretty efficient team, if not a thrilling team, that just finds a way to grind out results. That's what they're doing right now. They're not necessarily blowing anybody out. I think their leading scorer is Robin Lod with 6 goals, and it's like 2 behind that. And, now Ramon Abila, who is one of those low numbers, is Audi on his way to DC. We'll talk about that with Hernan Losada in just a little bit.
Perfect. Audi.
Yeah, you like that? Unintentional tie-in. I'm the king of MLS advertising puns.
Try to get Charlie in that car goal.
Exactly. What have you seen from Minnesota? Like what changed? What is different? What is the foundation that this is all based on?
So Lode being away for Euros was huge for them. And then Hunu had to come in and establish himself. Right now, this is the most settled they've been all year. Obviously, they finally announced that Ike Opara has, they've parted ways. While they probably internally knew he wasn't coming back, it takes away some of the question marks around the back line. But going forward, they have firmly established that Hassani Dotson has to be in the team. And he is now the building block of those two deeper midfielders, when last year it was Gregus and who fits off him. And Dotson and him didn't fit together. So now the energy of Dotson is what they've keyed in on, saying we need this in our group. Who fits with him? And that's brought Will Trapp into the side to sort of sit a little bit deeper to allow Dotson to cover ground. And he does that well because Reynoso likes to float. And a lot of times he'll want to float out wide right. And that's where Robin Lode's been perfect for them because he's happy to play as a second forward. And so there's that movement along the front 4 or 5 for this Minnesota team, which allows them to create chances, to confuse backlines, to confuse defenses, and gets players into comfortable positions. And then you've got the wingbacks who can always push up as well. Charlie's so upset about this conversation. He's just out of here.
He just had to get out. He just disappeared for those of you watching on YouTube.
But so that's what Minnesota, and I think this is what Minnesota was trying to build. Who knew is a physical presence up top. He's able to occupy center backs. He's able to be an option for Reynoso to play off of. Then you've got 2 wingers who could come inside and score goals, 3 now as well, with Fragapane and Finley. And you've got those fullbacks. So they've kind of come back to the team they were with Kevin Molino, I think, last year. And it feels like they have more of an established presence of a center forward and a way for Lode and Reynoso and that player to kind of work off each other. So a lot of the holes that they had, they've now clogged up, and they finally have given the keys to Dotson in midfield. And I think that's been huge to make Reynoso's life easier.
I think one of the things about it too, and you talked about Ike Opara, and shout out to Ike for the run that he had, and we hope that his health is okay and he's moving on to the next opportunity, whatever that may be, in the best possible headspace. But I thought without Boxall, look, I didn't think they had the guys in the back to survive Ike being gone. I didn't think Boxall was going to be able to carry that load. I liked Debasi, but he had been out. I didn't think Brent Coleman could do it. It turns out we were maybe wrong about those things. At least in this sort of 13-game period, we have been wrong. Debasi's back. Him and Coleman have been a good partnership. When Boxall comes back, one of those guys, I would assume Coleman will get forced to the bench. Again, they have the depth. We talked about LAFC losing center backs, not being able to deal. Well, they have been able to deal. It also helps that Metnier and Gasper have gotten back. You have consistency on that side, and they're 2 of the best outside backs in the league. And then you put Trapp and Dotson next to him, and all of a sudden the issue of the first 4 games is sort of gone. They have the foundation. They can defend. They can protect leads. They're not scoring many goals. They're not expansive and explosive, but that is the next step, and they basically have half a season to figure that out with 2 new pieces that they were chasing after for a long time and finally got in Hunou and Fragapane. So, like, Robin Lod has turned into maybe the guy that people hoped for. Like, as a goal scorer, as a creative presence, no, he's not Kevin Molino. No, he's not going to be that swaggy out on the field. He's just going to be super effective. Ethan Finley stretches the line, and Reynoso's Reynoso. And if you have guys making good runs off of him, if you have two players behind him that can protect him, and in Dotson, support him, win the ball back in good spots, and open up space, Reynoso's a killer. Like, he sees the game faster than everybody else. To me, for Minnesota United, everything's good now. They're going to be a playoff team, period. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The question is, does Hunou and Fragapane and Finley, to a lesser degree probably, do they deliver on the promise that they had as new signings, the price tags, the profiles they brought along? If they do, all of a sudden, this is a team in the Western Conference where it's like Sporting Kansas City, Seattle, and Minnesota United. I think that potential is there. Maybe LA Galaxy, TBD. But for me, Minnesota have the talent, and now they have the foundation. They can't.
Respect.
They can't right now. They can't. That's just to motivate them, though. That's just bulletin board stuff for the Colorado Rapids, by the way. And we didn't mention Robin Fraser, I should say, and assistants who've made good.
But he had
on
been
MLS head coaching. That's true.
That was the only reason I
Does
didn't
that
mention
count?
when we were having
Does
that
that count?
Does
Does it really
count?
Yeah, it's like
maybe not.
That's like a fantasy world.
That was
an
the
alternative
reason,
reality.
Because when he left Red Bulls and then Toronto, he was the most MLS head coach ready, but he had been a head coach in the past, so that's why I didn't say him. I'll slightly disagree with you. I think Minnesota's attack actually has been pretty prolific the last 3 weeks. They've scored 2 goals every game. It should have been more against Houston this week. They kind of took their foot off the gas because Houston kind of took their foot off the gas as well, and they were home. So that's fine. I actually think it's flowing pretty well.
Maybe it's just because I haven't seen it from Fragapane and Hunou. So I just keep thinking there's another level. Like right now, it's Lod, it's Finley, it's Reynoso, it's even Brent Kallman carrying this load in these games. But I haven't yet seen it from the new side. You have a DP center forward. Like that's where the elevation comes from. If all of a sudden he starts scoring goals and being more effective in that way, you're still going to get it from those other guys.
Which I think allows you to think about how good they can be.
Exactly.
Because if he's not firing on all cylinders, and I think for most strikers, it takes a little bit of time to acclimate to the league, to your teammates, to the tendencies, to the tempo. When they do click, we've seen it. Teams take off. Because then everyone else can also chip in with goals and assists and creating opportunities. So Minnesota United, I feel like I've always been super critical of Minnesota United because I've seen the potential and I know the players that they have. And, for me, I look at Hassani Dotson as a player that we're going to see him on the national team. He has that talent. He has that potential. Whether his long-term position is defensive midfielder, which I do think he could be that 6 or that hybrid 6'8", because he covers so much ground. He's tough as nails. He has had success at right back. He can be that inverted right back.
Don't do it.
That we
Stop
talked about
it.
last
Just
time.
quit it.
But I'm telling you right now,
Charlie.
he is where he's supposed to be, and we're seeing him starting to develop and take off. He has changed the midfield for Minnesota United because the transition game, he closes people down. He doesn't give anyone respect. He plays with that attitude, the chip on the shoulder that you see with certain players like a Tajon Buchanan in New England as well. I love that, and I really do see him being a full-on star in the upcoming seasons.
LA Galaxy hope they got a full-on star in the transfer window here. It seems like he has his work permit here. Dejan Jovic coming in. Number 99. Couldn't get that 9 probably. I think Chicharito's wearing that one. And Chicharito's
a huge Bradley Wright Phillips.
Really? He's a big BWP guy?
The greatest goal scorer.
He's like, what? I came to MLS to get 100. Yeah. So 99 is my initial goal. We're going over the top. Anyway, I think he's going to be available. Yeah, Chicharito is 14. You're right, Anders. I don't know.
I think Cabral is 9.
Cabral's 9?
Yeah.
Should have saved that for him, man. Come on, Kevin. You're not a 9. What are you doing, man?
Yeah, well, it's kind of screwed him the last few weeks. Greg's like, we're at 9?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, cool. Up top. Who's that guy wearing 9? Just put him at the top of the formation. But yeah, Chicharito, it's a mystery. We talked to Alicia Rodriguez of SB Nation. She covers everything in California on top of all of it. And she said it's kind of a mystery right now what's going on with Chicharito and that calf. there kept being a lot of stops and starts, and I just saw something on his Instagram where he was crying last week at training. So I don't know what's going on with Chicharito right now. But this is what
thing, the way his last year gone. He seems to do his best after
go through some emotional turmoil and then come out stronger on the other side. But this was sort of the hole that the Galaxy had. If not Chicharito, then who? Kevin Cabral, Ethan Zubak, certainly nobody at the same level as Chicharito. Okay, fine, but even a comparable level or a comparable profile, Dejan Joveljic is that guy.
Yeah, even if he's not, because a conversation with Hunu, right? Even if he's not scoring the goals, by pushing Cabral back into a comfortable position, giving Grandsir an option, meaning you don't need to play Victor Vasquez or Sasha Kljestan as a false 9 or start Ethan Zubak in a playoff game. All of those things raise the ceiling for this team and I think raise the floor. So he's a young player. It may not be that he hits this year, but I think his presence in the team makes them better. And the signing wasn't even for now, it's for the future. So I think it's going to work for them on both counts. And I think this was the biggest hole for the Galaxy, and they filled it in this window.
It might work though. He might work now. He went to Austria on loan in one season and scored 21 goals.
Bro,
I'm just saying
it could. That is absolutely true. Anything could work.
Might and could are the same. It's the same thing. We're agreeing.
We are not agreeing. You are using his Austrian Bundesliga goal scoring
You don't respect Wolfsburger AC or whatever that.
Not at all,
bro.
Get out of here.
You're gonna blow up Brendan Aronson's performance in the Austrian Bundesliga and then just doubt Joveljic?
I think Brendan Aronson has gotten better as a player. I think a lot of that is cultural. His experience of leaving home, being pushed out of his comfort zone, getting better. It is not because the level of the Austrian Bundesliga is as high as Major
David hates 99s. He hates number 99s. He's a big hater. I want to see this. Come on, Dejan. Prove this man wrong. Big game.
You wouldn't be proving me wrong.
He's also dead wrong.
He's also a German Bundesliga player. That's where he was from on loan, hence the quality that people think of him. But you're not going to look at those numbers and say he's going to score goals in this league because of that.
I might
get him, guys.
I can't believe I had to do this.
Get him.
You're lucky I didn't let Charlie go.
Get him.
You know what? My Galaxy Shrine is flickering right now. The force has been affected by your doubts. We'll see this weekend. Big Fox, Minnesota. 1 loss in 13 games, hosting the LA Galaxy. You can watch at 6 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Let's get to Leagues Cup, then we'll get to Hernan Losada. We haven't promoted that enough, but he's going to join us here in a second. We're really looking forward to that. Yeah, Ronnie Dava called Leagues Cup an experience for life, and boy, Ronnie, I do agree. I am still a Leagues Cup truther through and through. This tournament's going to be huge. I think you just got to give it time. But I did attend, as we referenced in the intro there, a disappointing Leagues Cup match. And if that isn't the Leagues Cup that is going to the 6-1 loss, Kansas City, to Club Leon. That isn't the Leagues Cup that is going to grab people and engage them. And that's okay. Not every game in a tournament is going to be that way. And we got the Sounders doing their thing against Tigres at night. So that was sort of we had the yin and the yang. We had both sides. But I will say that it was disappointing. I was disappointed to see Peter Vermes' lineup, even though I understood it. We have this email from Adrian about PV for Coach of the Year. And then, we had a bunch of emails about PV for Coach of the Year. Then it went downhill, right?
Yeah. So Monday we get the email from Adam giving us the full layout of why PV should be up for Coach of the Year. Then we get 97 emails over the course of this week, and I just picked one out that says, this shout out to Peter Vermes for starting a G team after hearing Weeby bang the drum over some Leagues Cup competition.
Yeah, that was a rough one for me, Peter. Oh. That was a rough one for me. Yes. And I honestly thought that Sporting Kansas City played pretty well for the first 15 minutes. They put Leon under pressure. They were pushing up high. They certainly are not playing anywhere close to a first team. All the big guns were on the bench outside of Daniel Shalhoub, really. But they might have exerted themselves too much, and maybe Leon was pretty happy about that because once they had Jalen Lindsey go out, Leon just tore him to shreds. It just did not look like that back four, and really the whole team understood how to defend in space and understood the way that Leon was going to move to just turn them into a big shredded ball of nothing. There were times where they're on the break and they're pulling two defenders off of two players at the back post who are just yelling for the ball, easy finish. So that was depressing, and here's what Peter had to say afterwards. We'd like to win everything that we play in, but unfortunately when you're playing 7 games in 22 days, we played 4 games in the last 11, altitude travel away from home. The reality is that I'm not going to risk guys that have high physical loads. Completely get it on the Alan Polito side. I was hoping Polito, Johnny Russell, Kinda, those guys, maybe 60th minute if the game was in reach. Well, the game wasn't in reach. He said they've been through this in 2019, so it's really simple. Did we want to lose like we did today? No, we do not want to, but I'm not going to put our team in jeopardy. I'll take this blame. The players out there have to do the best with it. It's an experience, just like Ronnie Dyla said. And for some of them, it's not a good experience, right? They got it handed to them, and they're going to have to bounce back from it. I felt bad for that 18-year-old right back that got thrown in there. He had a goal on him immediately, and then Leon just saw that and said, that's where we're going. I'm just going to say it. I was disappointed. It was a bummer. I love this competition, or the potential of this competition more accurately. And that's one of those games that makes you wince a little bit and be like, ooh, got to get better on that front. And maybe that's a scheduling thing because their schedule was rugged. Maybe that's just circumstance thing because Seattle had a bye. They came in with their first team mostly, had Nico off the bench, and they crushed Tigres. So maybe there's some circumstance to this. Maybe there's some young players that just weren't ready for the moment. That part is certainly true. But I hope that teams are, if we're going to make Leagues Cup a big thing, I hope teams have a little bit more of a runway with the schedule. And I also think that come 2023, when international schedules change, that this will start to make a little bit more sense, that the competition will probably grow, and that for anybody to expect this to be CCL with all its history, however painful it is off the jump, we're looking for something too much. This is like, it's a baby. Be patient with it and have a capacity for joy. Got to be patient with the first part, even though it sucked. Have a capacity for joy to watch the Sounders crush Tigres and NYCFC do their thing until they couldn't get it done from the run of play and lost them PKs. So Orlando, you're not our only hope, but it'd sure be nice if you beat Santos Laguna and made sure that was an MLS win or an MLS team in the final for us.
So what do you think changes? And I think this is a pretty good example because let's be real, Peter Vermes is probably going to be the coach of SKC for a while. What changes this for him? Like, is it purely just schedule that he adds, that he changes the team he plays in a moment like this? Or does something have to happen for him or the fan base or the ownership, whatever it is, to change his experience of the group he wants to put out and how he values the game that happened last?
Yeah, I mean, what happened is he obviously said, I value MLS over Leagues Cup. I get that. I respect that. That's a decision that he made, and as a manager, he's got to make it. I would hope that MLS can get to a point, whether it be in roster building or scheduling or in the history that gets built in Leagues Cup, because it's hard to imagine what it would mean to win or go far in this competition when MLS teams haven't, and there's only been what? There's been one edition, right? And then another one got canceled. Cruz Azul won it. Like
LA Galaxy went to the semifinal.
Yeah, I mean, got thrown PKs against Tijuana, right? Yeah, no, I remember. Like, come on, it's all ingrained to me.
You want to be that next club.
I got the tat on the inside of my arm. All the Leagues Cup wins throughout history are going to get written there. I just think it's going to take time, but I would hope, and my hopes for this league are that every competition for the very best teams and even the middle of the pack teams, and let's hope for the bottom teams too. Competitively, they value. Competitively, they're able to meet a certain standard, and that means roster building, and we're seeing that come to fruition, whether it be for U22 or for the academies spitting out players that played pretty well against Tigres as well, etc. That we get to a point where teams are able to withstand this sort of load. Mm-hmm. And even if it's not Polito and Russell, they've got guys that can compete because Kansas City didn't compete. They didn't compete in that game. Like they just weren't.
And I've been very impressed by Peter Vermes, the build out of the academy. And then you look, I think they have 13 homegrowns on their roster. Yeah. And Barber plays this weekend. Cisneros has gotten minutes. I really like Felipe Hernandez. It's just a good MLS player. Jalen Lindsay. He has pushed those players in.
Yes.
There is value to the moment that occurred on Tuesday later on for these young players and the experience they had. But it's similar to what it was like when Red Bull's young players played against Chelsea in a friendly, or TFC's young players played against Liverpool in a friendly, or Seattle against Chelsea, whatever it is. That was the experience they got versus what we've seen in CCL and now Open Cup of the more fusion of this is an important moment. We are playing to win. You are in this team alongside Graham Zusi and Roger Espinoza, who can help you carry this moment.
Now, the flip side is that Liga MX clearly took it very seriously. Leon put out their first team. They remember getting beat by TFC2. They had their knives out. They were like, you know what? We're about to carve you up. This is retribution. Don't think that you can play this sort of team against us and have any chance. So that's the flip side. You got to match that competitiveness. And if we want to say we're as good as Liga MX, we can compete with Liga MX, we're going to better Liga MX, you can't throw away opportunities to prove that when you haven't ever done it. You just can't. Certainly, you're not going to make the point that we want to make. And then maybe that will come in the future. All right, well, that's the Kansas City side, and that's the side where there can be improvement. Again, I get why Peter Vermes made the decision he made. It's just a bummer for me and for a lot of people that were at the stadium to see a 6-1 loss to Leon. That could have been an opportunity. It was for Seattle. They also had a week off, or at least a weekend to prepare for it. They play a first team. They assist us a smack Tigres. Mack them around. Make Piojo look like a scrub. No, I'm just kidding. But, this was the good side of Leagues Cup, right? The side where certainly the MLS side is taking it seriously. And I think Tigres did too based on their lineup. Was it all AAA plus? No, but their entire roster is at least an A. And here comes Nico off the bench with the left foot. Rui Diaz with the Panenka. Kellen Rose, the enforcer. Freddie Montero is locked in, looking like a game-changing player. João Paulo is probably the best midfielder in the league. I mean, this was fun. It was an amazing game, and it was the perfect sort of chaser to my experience with the crying child at Children's Mercy Park. Shout out to Sporting Kansas City for hooking me up with those tickets.
Wow.
That's it? You got nothing on Seattle? They didn't get you jacked up? You weren't happy?
I didn't. I was just making sure that you didn't have more thank yous to get more free stuff. I don't want to step on that at all.
No, I'll leave.
I only want to leave you.
Yeah,
okay,
no,
cool.
For sure. No, there's I'm not begging here.
Your
I'm not
insurance company, your grocery store.
Right.
Their reads come later.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Seattle was really fun. And so we talked about it with Gonzalo Pineda, but part of this is culture of it doesn't matter who's out there, an expectation of results and winning. And that's what we've seen from them this year. And this was just a continuation of this to me, of not being fearful of Tigres, not having respect, but not being intimidated by that moment. And then having the expectation that no matter who's out there, they can perform at a high level. And then as we talked about with the young players you have a João Paulo, you have a Rui Diaz, you have Yaimar alongside you to make your life easier. And this is a Seattle team that right now I think is a favorite in my mind to make MLS Cup from the Western Conference. And they showed in this game that toe-to-toe on the field, they can play with anyone in this region. And that was exciting to see, right? That our best is the best in the area. And there was moments where they had a sequence in the first half where they played it out of the back and they play it into Rui Diaz in the left or the right half space as he's coming back towards his own goal. And he hits a first time outside of the foot pass on the ground across the entire field into the path of Brad Smith. This was champagne stuff from Seattle against Tigres. And it's why Piojo walked off the field and you saw him get in an argument with fans on his way out. Because it was you didn't lose, buddy. You got worked here in Seattle. And this is a team that can do that to one of the best in Mexico.
And they're going to be even better. We've always had sort of the cliche with the Sounders of struggle to start, slow, mid-season, transfer window, big signing comes in. Nico Lodeiro is sort of the key in the past of that. And then they go on a big run and they're in MLS Cup. No surprises. Well, they did the first part without all the stars. Now the stars are coming back. Now the roster looks even more complete because all those young players, whether it be academy or otherwise, have had to step up and perform. You've had guys elevate themselves. Nuhu supposedly is close to coming back. He's arguably a best 11. He's an all-star, obviously. Roldan, I think, is a best 11, is an all-star. And now Nico Lodeiro comes back, and he doesn't just come back. He comes back to having taken phone calls on his shoe after putting the most incredible left-footed. I mean, that was absurd, that shot. That's one of the goals that I've just enjoyed most this season because it's Nico back, because of the difficulty of the shot, because of what it means to make it 3-0. And they almost made it 4-0 right after that with that play where they pinged it around and Rui Diaz had the diving header at the back post. And this is amazing. Christian Roldan from Alistair Brewer. Here's what Alistair says. Roldan has not lost a game in which he's played for club or country this year. This includes MLS, Gold Cup, Leagues Cup, probably scrimmages too. I did not check that stat. I just assumed that was 100% correct because it makes sense given they were in the Invincibles and they didn't lose until the Gold Cup started. What a season for both Roldans. And I would say, and Charlie, you know the Revs as well as anybody, right now in my mind, the Sounders would be the Supporters' Shield favorites for the second half of the year. Based on the players they have coming back, is there a better, quote-unquote, signing back from injury than Nico Lodeiro doing that? I don't think so.
No, I mean, it's hard to argue because you could see the Revs are at the top of the table. They're playing extremely well, but they're also missing Carlos Gil right now. And you don't know how long that injury is going to take to heal. Is it 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? It's been a very sensitive subject, as you might expect, considering he's the front runner for MVP. And so you look at Seattle, and Rui Diaz has been the baller, standout all season for Seattle. But Christian Roldan, once he left, the team dropped. And it's because of his ability to break up plays and bring that grit. Also,
and exploit space.
Who can finish, who has an awareness how to have success in this league. And then you throw in Ladero, who's is on his day is as good as anyone in this league. So the advantage right now is with the Seattle Sounders. So I think from the Seattle standpoint, it's Western Conference, not as strong as the Eastern Conference right now, and they're going to continue to excel with everyone getting fit and rotations, and I think being super smart and calculated with who you're going to push. How many minutes are you going to give Nico Ladero before the playoffs? Because that's when you're really going to start seeing teams wanting to be in their rhythm, in their best form heading into the playoffs in October.
Can I have a love fest on João Paulo right now? You're a basketball guy, more than I, certainly, Dave. Charles Barkley is like the name that I want to throw out with João Paulo and the way that he uses his body. Like the biggest difference I saw between Sporting Kansas City, just sort of anecdotally, like matchup based, and Seattle, is that Seattle dictated contact and they used it to their advantage, and they just sort of bullied Tigres at times.
I don't know if I'd go. First off, I don't know if I'd go with Charles Barkley.
Yeah, come on, the way Charles uses the backside, dude, and the explosion afterwards.
How about not like Javier Mascherano? Like that's that's
fine, but it's not as fun. It's not as fun.
Charles Barkley,
because João Paulo gets you. He gets you on his butt.
Come on,
he gets you on his butt, and then you either fall down because you're not strong enough, or he just leaves you behind with 2 or 3 steps and then makes the perfect pass. It's the strength, it's the balance, it's the acceleration. It's like, I guess you could do running back as a comparison here.
No, but I think.
Oh, so you're going for the headlines right now with Charles.
But there's an interesting experience I had because yesterday I actually worked a USL Championship game, and Christian Fuchs made his debut. Obviously, Charlotte FC signing, former Leicester City defender, hasn't played soccer in like a competitive game in 6 months, and was a step off. But if he could physically make contact with you, he controlled that moment.
Yes,
right. The best players in the world, and many of them are defenders or defensive midfielders. Everything can happen in space, but the moment they are within an arm of you and they can touch you, then they can control what you do. They could pull you, they could push you, they can get their body around you. And so that's what you're talking about. And you see it with those very best players is they know where the space is, they know how to read the game, all those things. But once they are physically within your distance, they can control that matchup. And that's what you see with the best center backs in the world versus some of the best forwards is if the forward can get into space, like a Charlie, they've got you because they've got you on your heels. They're running at you. They are dictating that moment. But when the defender is the one who's able to create the contact early on, I think Matt Hedges does this really well in MLS, right? Ball's over the top. He bumps immediately. And now the entire thing's a 50-50 rather than a run into space to then match up for that 50-50. So I see that as well. And with João Paulo, is he that athletic? Like, does he cover that much ground at a high speed? Or is it just that he does it all intelligently and he's able to stick around the guys he needs to? And I think that's what's made him so good in MLS.
Yeah, he just reads the game. He knows where to be. He knows where you're going to be, what your body position is going to be. He's going to be lower than you. He's going to be more balanced than you. He's stronger. And if he gets that butt into you, you're done. You're cooked. It's over. All right, let's get to Hernan Losada here. We'll get our ESPN Plus afterwards. But big times for DC. They go to Nashville this weekend, Sunday on ESPN Plus, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's an AT&T 5G call to the field, out to the nation's capital. We chatted with him before the game started, right when he was hired, I think in a hotel room somewhere in Europe. It's Hernan Losada, the manager of DC United. Hernan, welcome back to the show, man.
Thank you, guys. Happy to see you back again.
Happy to see DC playing the way that they're playing, and we'll get to the start and some of that side of things first. But I want to ask you about a moment after this game against the Club de Foot Montreal. I almost did it again. Where it was you, it was Paul Arriola, it was Kevin Paredes, and it was Andy Nahar, sort of in a group hug moment after this win. Tell me about that moment. What did that mean? What was going on? What was the emotion that was coursing through you guys?
No, I think you just choose one moment of me hugging with 3 players, but we hug all the time with with the whole group. I don't have any preference, and I really like the personal contact with the players to make them feel home, to make them feel like I'm not the boss. I'm their coach, and I want them to perform, and I get paid to make them better. So all those hugs after the game are moments of joy and moments of happiness of me as a coach, seeing my team and my players doing what we train and doing what we plan before the game.
Well, Hernan, you touched on making players better. I had the opportunity to play with Andy Nahar at DC United in 2011. Attacking player. He goes to Belgium, scores in Champions League. Really a phenomenal player, young player. Now comes back to MLS and has struggled. Finds himself at DC United with you, and now he's flourishing as a right center back. How did you bring him along? How did you get him to perform at such a high level and now be one of the bigger players for your club?
It was a big progress with him. He didn't play almost no full game for the last 3 years. And during preseason, we didn't allow him to play any friendly game. We were just focused on his fitness and tried to make him stronger, especially on those weak spots where he got hurt so much the last couple of years. And I think him playing as a center-back was also kind of part of the plan, because playing as a wing-back or playing as a winger, you have to do a lot of more high-speed distance and sprints. And as a part of his build-up and his fitness, we thought that it was going to be the perfect fit for him and for our system to start as a center-back, as an offensive center-back, and from there on, try to choose the right moments to play him higher on the field if the team need it. But that's something that I've been doing in my period in Belgium. I always play with a back three, but one of the center-backs used to be a fullback, an offensive fullback, and then you create overlaps from a lower position, and that makes it very hard for the opponent to defend, because the defender starts very low. Nobody follows him, and when you have a player with the abilities of Andy on the build-up to break that first line of pressure, well, many people maybe who knew Andy from before were thinking this is a little bit crazy to play that guy as a center-back. But actually, when we have the ball, it's more an offensive fullback, right, and it's not anymore a center-back. So we try to keep a balance in the team, and was kind of the plan in his fitness to start with him as a center-back.
So it's Andy Cannavaro now, is it?
you can tell. No, Andy can do everything. You know, you put him on the left wing back against Columbus Crew, and he performs. You play him on the right wing back, he performs. He can play on the winger, he performs. He even can play as a defensive midfield player, and he's capable of playing in many positions. And those players who are able but also open to perform in different spots, those are the players that any coach needs to create a good synergy and a good balance in the team.
So a lot of what we heard coming out of DC early on in preseason and then early on in the season, and you've already used the word multiple times, fitness and building this team up. And we knew that would be a focus for you. We've seen other coaches come into this league, maybe from similar backgrounds to yours, that have also kind of focused on that, and it's been successful and unsuccessful. But there was a lot of injuries early. It didn't look like the team could play the way you wanted them to play. You talked about that as well. What was the first 4 or 5 months of this experience like, and how did you get here to where we are at now?
Unbelievable experience. As a young coach, full of energy like me, you start and you want everything after a few weeks. And that was something that I needed to understand, that I was arriving to a new culture, a new club, a new mentality, a new league, where different aspects plays a big role, like the weather, the traveling. And I also needed to realize that this team, and not only this team, the whole competition came from a very tough year last season, where there were many breaks. Off season was longer than ever. And for some players, was the beginning was tough, but you need to start somewhere. And we did a lot of changes. And little by little, we start to find that balance between pushing too hard, being fit, nutrition, a mental coach. And at a certain point, everything came together and we started to get results. But I knew it was a matter of time, even though now we still are missing important pieces and important players. But we tried to give the attention to all the players because we knew that we were going to need them all from number 1 until number 28, 29. I think we are the only team in the league who has 26 different starters in the league. We use in total 28 players until now. And for me are all important. And knowing that it will be a tough season, we put also a lot of attention in all the guys. And the moment they get the minutes, they are ready to go.
You mentioned the schedule, the difficult 2020 that we all had. I mean, it's not just MLS, obviously, and the weather, and there's all these things. And sometimes it feels stereotypical when we talk about coaches or players coming to the league. Oh, they have to figure out X, Y, Z. Like, they're not going to know what this weather like, or to travel across country. What are your impressions of MLS after 6 months? From a competitive standpoint, a tactical standpoint, the players, what stands out to you? If you called your buddy back home and he's coaching too, and you're like, oh, let me tell you all about MLS, man, what would you say?
Very hard competition, a lot of technical players. Every club and every team has a very clear game plan with a different style. You have a defensive coach, you have a very possession-minded coach, you have a transition coach, a counter-attack coach like the one in Philadelphia. You have many different styles, and every team has, especially in the offensive part, very good players. And when you see the latest transfers that have been in this summer window, I see teams buying players for 7, 8, 6, 5 millions. Even Atlanta now bought a player who was a starter in Lille. Lille is the last champion of Ligue 1 in France competition. Well, Austin buys an Argentinian player from Zenit St. Petersburg. We are talking about players coming to MLS from already big teams. And all the best Brazilians from the Brazilian competition are coming here, and all the best Argentinian players are coming here. And automatically the level of the league goes up. So pretty impressed. But also I knew this could happen. I think the league is also getting ready for the next World Cup. I mean, not in Qatar, but when it's organized here with Canada and Mexico, I think for that time, this league is going to be amazing. You see also every year 2-3 new stadiums open up, clubs investing in new infrastructure. And that also makes possible that academy players start to come up. They start to invest in the young guys. And when you put all together, well, you have a competitive league, and MLS is growing and will keep on growing.
Hernan, I'm interested in the academy. DC United have always produced talented players, but when they hit the professional level, some haven't really paid off. Although Andy Nahar was one that really had a fantastic transition. You have Moses Nyman and you have Kevin Paredes, and they both look like they're flourishing under you. Where do you see their potential? Where do they need to improve, and how do you see them continuing to grow within your team right now?
I'm very pleased to have those two guys in my team. I have to say I have a great contact with them. We talk on a daily basis. We show them clips. And I think what every young guy with talent like Moses and Kevin needs is minutes and games and confidence. And I know and we know they're going to make mistakes, but that's the price you need to pay if you want them to see developing and if you want to see them growing and being part of this organization. And for me are both key players. I love the way they train. I love their freshness and the energy they bring in the team. And I don't know what's the limit for them. Right now, I hope we can enjoy them for a couple of more years, because I do believe they have potential to play in a very big competition in Europe.
Oh, wow. I want to see that too. So
yeah, give us the Preda scouting report here on your side, because it's so fun to watch him. He's that sort of attacking player that just lulls defenders into tackles, and then either he's getting crushed or he's running by you while you sit on the ground and watch him. He's explosive. Those first 2 steps are just, he flies.
Yeah, both of them. Kevin playing as a wingback, and the last couple of games playing more as a winger to have him a little bit closer to the opponent's goal. Moses on the midfield. He's great with the ball. He's still learning a lot off the ball tactically, when to press forward, when to drop, and form a good defensive block, when to play forwards, when to keep the ball in the team. But both are explosive types, and those are the type of players that a coach who wants to play the way I want to play needs in your team. You need those mobile, explosive, full of energy guys who are able to press forwards, but also to have the energy that you need to play in transition and to play vertical the way we want.
Are there any other academy players that have impressed you that have not yet gotten the opportunity, but you could see down the line, them breaking through?
Yao, he's also training with us, has a lot of potential. The only thing is that right now his best position or his best spot is on the right wing or right wing back, and right now we have with Julian Gressel a player who is performing in a great way. We have Jeremy Garay playing on the midfield with Loudoun United. We have Giovanni Bolivar. He didn't come from our academy, but he's also a young talent from Venezuela who is training with us, and he's also making steps forwards. I try to watch all Loudoun games. Most of the academy players are playing right now there, and I don't see on short term maybe coming, but on long term there are a few guys that we are following up, and maybe they will join us during the next preseason.
The youth kids go ahead.
No, moving from the youth a little bit, but you mentioned with Yao his best position, and you look at this team, it feels like a lot of guys are naturally want to play in the same spot, because you could say the same about Paul Arriola out wide right, or Yamil Assad and other pieces that kind of want to play the same role. You've had to rotate through guys, but when you look at an ideal roster and how you want it to be set up, do you want to constantly be able to rotate guys, or do you want to be able to solidify on a 12 or 13? Or am I asking a ridiculous question because you've been so far from this?
It's a very good question. No, I mean, my ideal plan, and I think the ideal plan of every coach, is to try to keep at least the base. And if you make a rotation, you're making 1 in 2 in 3 spots. Unfortunately, we were pushed to make every single game 4, 5, 6 changes sometimes, and that's why I'm so pleased with the energy. No matter who's playing, the energy is the same, the tactics are the same, and everyone is really into that style of play. But when you see New England, it's the very same starting 11 week in, week out. Now they are missing Carlos Hill, but you see 1 change, 2 changes. On the West Coast, the same. The teams who are on top of the rankings, they don't change too much unless you have those stretch of games and games in the road. Then maybe you need to choose here and there and make more changes. But the ideal scenario is to have a solid base of 7, 8, 9 starters, and once in a while change 2, 3 positions.
Thank you, Hernan, by the way, for saying to Julian Gressel, unleash the right foot. Because his service, his ability to put the ball in dangerous positions is incredible. He's had a career resurgence. Ola Kamara has had an incredible season so far, one of the most efficient goal-scoring seasons we've ever seen so far. And then you're still waiting for Edison Flores to come back. These are sort of the veterans, including Paul Arriola, who's come back from injury recently, that you were building around. What's up with Flores right now, and how have you seen the other 3 guys?
Well, Eddie took a little bit longer than expected. He's already a little bit more than 3 months. Was a big muscle injury in a delicate spot in his hamstring. We hope to get him back now for Nashville and New England. He will be part of the roster. So that's good news. Paul has been with a couple of injuries and also the Gold Cup, but he's totally fit. Donovan Pines, Bill Amit, Russell Canaus, Brendan Heinzike, Adrian Perez, well, those guys will be a little bit longer.
Oh,
but as you see, those are important players. We are missing right now, and still we are getting good results. So once again, I'm very happy that from day one I put my attention in the whole roster and not only in those guys that we are missing right now.
How good can Flores be for you? Like what can he be in your team? Because we haven't seen him hit yet in Major League Soccer.
I think it was very unfortunately the timing of his injury. He was really becoming that fit and decisive player we all knew he could be. At the moment he got hurt, and now, well, it's a matter of building up his fitness again to give him limited minutes and be precautious. I still believe he can play an important role for us. He's one of the 2 DPs we have in our roster together with Paul Arriola. You always expect something extra and something more from a DP. So let's hope Eddie can be decisive in our game. And the last sprint of the regular season will be very important. So we count on him.
Hernan, Ola Kamara, he couldn't score more than a goal or 2 last couple of seasons, and it was almost like he was a wasted player because he wasn't provided service. Not typically a striker who's going to break you down on the dribble. This year, you're providing him service, and he's banging the goals in. You just added Ramon Abila. Can you talk to me about how you see Ramon kind of maybe is it kind of a substitution type player? Is it a player just to give Ola a break here and there? And then what has Ola done so well for you?
Well, first of all, Ola have been working very hard during the off season. He knew that not only him but the whole roster needed to do better. And when you feel physically sharp and fit to make the efforts off the ball, but you also have the energy to finish your chances and scoring opportunities like Ola is doing, then you have a good season. And I think he fits in our style of play. We like to play very vertical the moment we recover the ball, and Ola is a scorer and has also a very good connection with Julian, with Kevin, with Paul. The whole crew and the whole team knows what to do in the different phases of the game. And Ola is a smart player. He has experience, and I knew that when he was able to play 90 minutes and feel sharp and ready, he will start to perform. So I'm very happy with Ola. And with Avila, well, it's still not official, right? But he will be joining us as part of the roster. I think the number 9 position is a key position. And when you have, like now, Nashville on Sunday, New England on Wednesday, you need 2 number 9s to rotate and to keep them both fit. If Ola is going to play every single game, at the end of the week, he will end up being hurt, especially the way we play. So he's coming to give us a little bit more of depth, and whenever we need him at the end of a game or to start a couple of games, hopefully he's ready.
Nashville, DC, Sunday, MLS Live on ESPN Plus, 7 p.m. Eastern. Hernan Losada and DC above the playoff line right now, playing really, really well. Hernan, I'll talk to Sam in PR. You can send me a meal plan here. I need to drop a couple pounds on my end, but we'll figure that out off camera. All right, man. Really happy to talk to you, and happy to see DC having some good times right now.
Yes.
Thank you very much, guys. No, about nutrition, we have a nutritionist. It's not me doing that, but I believe that the fuel that you pump into your body is key. It's key not only to feel yourself fresh and fit, it's also key to avoid injuries. And in this club, they're having a lot of injuries, and I think kind of prevention is to have a good nutrition, and that combined with resting, which is also very important, and good training sessions. Well, you see the results right now, and the guys are very happy and are willing to make that click and that change. And for some of them was easier than for another ones. But when you start seeing the results and you start to feel yourself in good shape, then you wanted to do it, So I'm happy that the players bought into that new lifestyle. Let's call it that way. But on the other hand, when you see the Instagram pages of Sergio Ramos, Karim Benzema, Dybala, Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, and all the top players. You want to perform that way, and then you need to take care. And they take care during off-season, they take care during preseason, they take care during the season, and they are prof 24/7. And if we want to strive for perfection and go always for more, you need to make an effort. And nutritionist is one of those efforts we are willing to do.
That's what I tell myself.
That's the accountability
January.
I need in my life.
Every January 1st, but then January 2nd, the taco place opens.
How do we need some resources from DC United? We need to have like a fitness regimen for extra time. But we really appreciate your time, Hernan. Happy, healthy, fit in DC and above the playoff lines. Congratulations on your success so far.
Thank you, guys.
Big thanks to Hernan for joining us. It's always a joy to talk to him. Good to see the transition, the progress from when we first chatted till now. DC going to Nashville this weekend. What's your ESPN Plus game of the week here? Charlie, start with you.
It was going to be New York City FC versus Miami. I passed. I went Dallas at SKC. Dallas coming in 3-0-1 in their last 4 matches.
With the win against KC too.
Yes, and Ricardo Pepi had a hat trick to kick off this run. And I think we've seen Paxton Pomykal and Jesus Ferreira both start to come on. So Dallas looks like a new revitalized team. And then SKC, like you saw, Leagues Cup, we don't care about it. We care about this season. Well, you got to step up against a team who beat you at home. Now you're playing on the road in Dallas, which we all know is a very difficult place to play. And they're unbeaten at home. They're 4-5. So for me, this is the matchup of the weekend.
A competitor podcast had a really good interview.
I was going to say, thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And Kosi Tafari, who's, I think, been key to the center back role for Dallas. Brassan's out suspended for this game against KC. Hedge has been injured most of the year. Martinez hasn't really hit. And Tafari has been phenomenal. Draft pick last year, didn't play any minutes. I think he's one of the most interesting people in MLS. We finished the interview and talked for like 40 minutes afterwards, just about whatever.
No surprise there.
He's talking soccer. He's talking Russian League, USL Championship. I was like, are you going to coach? He goes, no, I think I want to be more of a Renaissance man. I'll probably try and act. His dad's a chef. So maybe I'll sprinkle in a little bit of that after I finish playing.
It's between him and Kellen for the most fashionable man in MLS.
Potentially.
I really do think that it's those two, honestly.
A lot of bleached hair then.
Yeah, that's true. I've got the Charlie Davies ESPN Plus game of the week here. Toronto FC, New England Revolution. Still want to see how they play without Carlosio because he ain't coming back. Not that I know of, not that anybody knows of. In Toronto, after those changes at halftime last weekend, what does Javier Perez do in that starting lineup? What decisions does he make, hard or otherwise? And then obviously you watch Tejan with the 2 DP forwards. That's always fun. See if New England can keep the run going. Dave, what's your ESPN Plus game of the week?
End of the Saturday night, ton of games. I'm going RSL hosting Austin. I think there's a chance we could see Druisi from the beginning for Austin. Maybe that gives them that confidence to start creating chances. And for RSL, we've had a few conversations in the group chat and whatever about where teams stand right now in the tiers. And I think at the top end, it's pretty obvious. RSL, to me, is one of those teams that sort of stands alone. Maybe Montreal in a similar category where they don't quit. They don't give up on games. They don't have superior talent to a lot of teams, but they do have a lot of depth and pieces that they trust. And I think we're in a really interesting spot the next 4 or 5 weeks where they could firmly establish themselves as a playoff team, or it could fall apart.
Yeah.
And if it falls apart, it could all collapse.
Was it overperformance and they were like, you were wrong about us, or otherwise? We shall see.
But you watch the Timbers game. I thought they were the better team. They gave up some great goals, and down 2-0 and 3-1 on the road, they continued to fight and push back, and not every team in this league does that. So I'm hopeful that they're able to start to get some results here.
By the way, Portland is hosting Seattle on Sunday. That's the nightcap Sunday, FS1, 10 p.m. Eastern. We talked all about the Sounders, but didn't hit the Timbers. I'm sure we won't hear about that from Portland fans at all. They won't say a single word. Mailbag time, 401-2060 MLS, extra time at MLSsoccer.com. Take us through it, Dave. We'll get out of here.
Yeah, so we got some good stuff. We've already sprinkled some in. Gabe in KC says, hey, extra time. So this might be hard to believe, but I've been on the Andrew Fontas hype train since he first came to Kansas City from Barcelona back in 2019. Now is an incredibly lonely hype train for about 2 years, but it seems that people may be starting to actually think Fontas is a quality center back. I personally believe that he could be a candidate for Defender of the Year. However, I recognize that because I was hyping a guy for 2 years that no one else likes, it may not be the best judge of what makes a good center back. What is the metric you use to judge whether or not defenders average, good, or great?
Ooh, that last question is interesting. Gabe in Kansas City, look, Andreu Fontas was the reason why nobody was talking about Andreu Fontas. He was hurt, and when he played, he didn't perform. But he is performing this year. He is the highest leverage possession center back in the league. He's the highest possession player in the entire league. He touches the ball more than anybody else does, and Kansas City obviously is a possession team, so that makes sense. And I think the big difference for Fontas this year is that in transition moments, instead of being exposed, which is what he had been happening to him, he is now sort of like he's putting out the fire. And so Kansas City are going to be in some situations where they're pushed forward, where because they want to be on the ball and possess and take some chances and have players out wide and Shelby and Russell to go 1v1, that the ball is going to get turned around on them. If he wasn't able to make those plays, they would be in a much worse position. I definitely think he is a Defender of the Year candidate. But Charlie, I'd be curious from your point of view as a striker, how you judge a defender. Because you got a mano-a-mano relationship with those guys.
It's a number of things. So one, how difficult are they to play against in the 50-50 challenges? So aerial challenges, are they bumping you before? Are they are they good with their hands? Are they good by trying to get you off balance before I would start a run? So those are the players that I'm like, oh, I can't be within a hand's reach because they are very physical. They'll grab me. They won't allow me, because the smartest defenders don't allow you to run into space untouched. You'll never be allowed to run into space untouched if you're with a good defender who's wary of your pace. So I was always a quick striker, strong striker. I knew that if I was around a defender within an arm's reach, they were going to disrupt me if I was playing against someone good. So that was one. Two, when we got into those wide, if I ever was able to pull out a defender into a wide area, was he one to come right at me, or was he dropping off, or was he delaying me until he realized where the help was, and then he could approach me, forcing me into his help? Those were always the defenders that I was like, this guy's he knows exactly where his help is, so he could force me that way. Then it comes down to, when they do tackle you, are they getting a piece of you? Are they being extra physical and then reading the game? So would a defender typically force the ball to another opponent, knowing that player is not as good in 1v1 situations, not as dangerous in those spaces? So typically a defender would go and approach him and leave me. They'll say, okay, he'll have the ball, and I know he's looking for you and where you want to go. I know your tendency is to make this run from left to right and get onto your strong foot. So those defenders who knew my tendencies and knew where I like to be, the same spots I like to check, or knowing my dummy runs, those were the defenders I said, I can't stand playing against. I really can't, because, like a player who just feels like they're 4 steps ahead as a defender, which is rare. Those were the defenders I didn't want to deal with.
Who is the guy in your MLS days that you would, or international days too, that you would pinpoint and say he was the hardest to play against?
The hardest to play against ever that I've had to come against in club would probably be in France when I was playing against Lille. I think they won they were the champions that season. Their 2 center backs, they were just very intelligent, but physical, athletic, and they could read the game well. So they never let me run into space, and I wasn't receiving an elbow or a forearm. Or if we did go for a 50-50 challenge, or what I thought was not a 50-50 challenge, as I was going to get to the ball first, they made sure they got a piece of my foot, my leg, my quad, my calf. So those 2 center backs, blanking on their names right now, that's why. But those 2 were the best, in my opinion. In MLS, I hated playing against Chad Marshall. If you had to, just be in a situation where you got to go up for an aerial challenge or a duel, you knew you got no shot. You're just trying to get underneath them. You hope that you can pull them out into space, but Chad Marshall, for those 50-50 challenges, didn't want to play against them. And then the athleticism, it was Marvell Wynn, because it was either you're playing against someone who's super athletic and you don't super smart, and you know that they're going to bang you up, or the super athletic defender who you could still beat, but we're going to recover, and still you're going to have to beat them again. And that would be a Marvell Wynn. Kevin Alston is a fantastic 1v1 defender. those were the guys that stand out in my mind of being like, I know this one's going to be tough. Oh, Jameson Olave was another one who I have a tremendous amount of respect for because
I haven't heard of Jameson.
He put a beating on me every time. I liked the challenge, but I knew I was gonna leave the match with some bumps and bruises.
It shows you. He calls him Jameson because post game, then it's straight to the whiskey to try and feel a little bit better.
Yeah. Who was that just worked me over?
Yeah.
One more and let's get out of here.
Let me close you guys out on this one. Doesn't need a response, but it's a great email. It says, "Hey guys, great listening to you the last few years. I'm writing to tell you that the Impact, yes, it's still the Impact.
God, I'm gonna make that transition soon.
Extra time team. Not only have they gone for real bargains around the league that have been successful, like you've said with Toy, Mihailovic, and Miller." For your guy Charlie, Mason Toy getting minutes, but they now have a real young core coming in. Torres is one of the best dribblers in the league.
He is.
Tony Ayer is playing out of position, but still got the starting spot over Broguillard. Amdi seems like a good number 8 to drive the game forward. Maciel has a sweet left foot for diagonals, just for Doyle. They have the best rivalry in the league for Weeby. They play everybody at wing backs. That one's for our fallen soldier Bobby. Half the roster speaks French for me. Mason Toy up top for Charlie. And finally, they have a young coach who's willing to put out his philosophy on the club. All the reasons for them to be your new favorite team, Votre fan Montrealais.
You can give us some pointers maybe at home if Dave butchered that, or some congratulations if he didn't. All right, that's it for us. Big thanks to Hernan, and thanks to you guys for hanging around and talking soccer for an hour and a half. It's the best part of my week, extra time, and I hope it is for you as well at home. Rate us, review us, please share with your friends if they like soccer. We will be back on Monday. We'll see you then. Enjoy your weekend, folks. So you made it through and even enjoyed more than an hour of MLS talk with Extra Time driven by Continental Tire. That means that you should go subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to them, and you should also check out more Extra Time on the MLS YouTube channel. If I can point right there, click right there, and subscribe to the MLS channel right here. Have a great day, folks.